Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Faith, Family, and Film podcast. This is our first ever episode, and I thought only appropriate, since this is my first time doing an actual podcast show, that the only first guest I could possibly have is my dear longtime friend and frequent collaborator, Renay Rayes. So say hello,
Hello.
Renay.
Thank you for having me, Aaron. This is truly special.
Yeah, well, it only made sense. If I was going to try to do podcasting, you had to be one of the first, if not the first guest. It just made logical sense. So we'll just jump right into it. A lot of what we're going to talk about is, the immersion of, our faith, how it impacts what we do in film, and also sometimes how it impacts our family, because we both have families that we're striving to support through our art. So my first question for you is can you tell me a little bit about how did you first kind of get into acting, and what have you kind of continued to do in pursuing that? Like what kinds of jobs have you taken?
Yeah, it was kind of innate for me at a young age. I was like 4 years old, and I've shared this story before with you where I have kind of like tried to break into the TV at the age of 4. Yeah, I was at my grandmother's house and my dad was sleeping, and I was like, "Hey, this is it. This is my chance." I was watching Barney, climbed up my grandmother's counter in her kitchen, grabbed like a cooking utensil, tried to break into the TV screen. And then my dad was waking up and I stopped. I was like, "Oh, my chance is gone. My chance is gone." So, after that, I saw my uncle on stage at Wayne State University, and he played Scrooge, and he did such a phenomenal job. Like, it's still so imprinted in my mind seeing him on stage, and nobody else in the family, like, this doesn't really run in my blood. Nobody else has done like acting or anything creative in that nature. So he inspired me, and I held on to that. And then fast forward to when I was in college, my first semester in college, I got this little thing in the mail, little yellow piece of paper that was like, it was an ad, and it was like, "You want to be a star?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah."
Oh yeah, one of those.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I knew in my heart of hearts, like, that was like, I knew it was a scam, but I'm like, "Let me just take a chance. Let's do this." So I followed through with it. I saw the time, the location, I drove there, and it turned out to be one of those like scam schools, John Robert Powers trying to promote that they can give you a role. All you need to do is pay and take this class. And, I ended up doing it. I ended up borrowing money from my aunt, taking the class, and I don't regret it at all because it connected me with people that connected me to my first gig. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
So what was it about like acting that for you, you said you kind of it connected you to people. Was that kind of like what you loved about it? Like what was it about acting that you kind of latched on to?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I just, art is very interesting, and everybody, you know, expresses their passion in different ways. And for me, I felt like I've always had this like natural pull to singing, to acting, and a lot of it did have to do with like how much I spent in front of the TV as a kid watching people on TV and seeing moving things that helped me in my own personal life, where I was like, I want to do that. I want to inspire people. I want to be up there. I want to one day hear someone say, "Wow, Renay was in this film, and this film, or Renay made this film," because I also love the idea of, creating my own content.
Mhm.
And it was moving and inspiring me, and it inspired me, and it helped me through whatever it was that I was going through. I think that's really what I love about acting and music.
Like was now like as you've been watching a lot of movies and stuff like that, was there a particular movie or actor that really you drew inspiration from, or you felt like that performance really moved you in that kind of way?
When I was a teenager, I watched Leon the Professional for the first time. I think it had to have been like 13 or 14, and it was my dad's favorite movie. And he was like, "You have to see this." And so I watched this film, and Natalie Portman was in it. And at the time I didn't know who Natalie Portman was, right? Because that was like the first film she'd ever done.
Hmm.
And her role was really the real push for me to want to do that because she was young. She was amazing in it. Luc Besson was he was the director of that film, and John Reno, was that who was, yeah, I'm trying to remember who the lead actor was, but it was just so phenomenal. It was motivated me and encouraged me to want to do that. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, she is so young here, and she was just so powerful in that role, and it was so inspiring.
Awesome, awesome. All right, well, we're gonna go back in time here and test your memory of past events. So from your memory, do you can you describe how we first met?
So, yeah, I love this because it was a very special time. It was literally the very beginning of me going for all of this and actually trying it out. And so I ended up on this website that was sort of like a Craigslist slash Model Mayhem, or almost like a MySpace, not really, version of like for acting, in modeling and singing. And so I remember trying it out. I was like, why not? Let me put my headshot up there. Let me put my resume up there. And it's funny because the two people that I met on that site ended up becoming like longtime friends. Then you and my friend Jeffrey Pask, who was my photographer,
Mm-hmm.
I had met him on there because he was pushing me to do like Miss USA. And he would message me and say, I would love for you to try out Miss USA. And then I saw your post on some short film that you were casting for. And I believe I had messaged you for that, or you,
I
something
remember.
that,
I think I had just reached out to you because like I was trying to at the time, since I was in film school, I was like in the process of like networking with just actors who were in the area. I mean, at the time I was in West Michigan going to school, but I saw that
okay.
you were from my neck of the woods on the east side. So I was like, oh, okay, this is
Yeah.
someone kind of within driving distance of when I'm home. So it's
Yeah.
a good person to connect with. So I think I reached out I think it was just because like that was the interesting thing about NextCat. It was kind of almost like it was kind of a networking site, but like
Mhm.
it had a Facebook style to it where it was very much like you could put videos of reels up there, you could put headshots and stuff like that. And yeah, it was kind of like it was trying to be like one of the early professional film networking websites between
Kind
like
of like
cast,
Weebly.
yeah, like kind
Mhm.
of like that connection between cast and crew. But sadly, NextCat no longer. It did not last very long, so R.I.P. NextCat. But
Yeah. Okay,
but
so you had reached out to me. I
yeah,
was
because
trying to
I
remember that. I'm like,
yeah, I think when you and I had we had messaged back and forth a little bit because like you were asking me questions like what kind of stories was I writing at the time. I was kind of figuring out
yeah.
like okay, what had you done before, and like how green were you? Obviously, we were both somewhat green at the times.
Yes,
And
we were.
then we made the arrangement to do our first initial short film in that February of 2011,
Oh yeah, we'll never
which
forget
is
it.
cold to say
It was
the
very
least.
cold. It was brutally cold. It was like -10 degrees.
Something like that. And I think you were in like a pleather black jacket. Like it wasn't like we had you bundled up. We at least had Dax, your co-star, bundled up somewhat, but you were kind of like just in a pair of jeans, and I think you had a
The
couple layers
lightest.
underneath, but then it was just like a really simple like biker black jacket, I think.
It was like the lightest like leather you could ever imagine. It was so light.
Yeah.
It
And
didn't
meanwhile,
do
I'm in a
anything. It
winter.
was just for style.
Yeah, well, and like meanwhile, I'm like in a heavy duty winter coat and like heavy, like thick, like skier gloves, where it's like I couldn't even operate. I had to take them off to operate the camera, which is insane. What's still so pretty about that short, because like I recently relooked at it, is the fact that we had that perfectly pretty Michigan snow, where it's thick, it's like the snowflakes are huge, and it's just like falling,
Really? I
and
haven't
it
seen
just
it in so long.
yeah, it
That's so
I mean,
pretty.
yeah, I mean, it looked like our location was really cool too, but
Uh-huh.
like that snow was just so thick, it just kind of adds so much atmosphere to it. However, that was luckily just our first go at it because obviously we did that, and you continue to do some films as well. But then since I guess you get to take the credit for this next part, talk about the conversation you and I were having that ultimately led to our feature film.
Yeah, so we met up at our little spot, the coffee shop that no longer exists. I think it was called Caribou Coffee.
Mm-hmm.
That's so long ago. It's crazy. But yeah, we met up and you had, proposed this new short film that you were ready to work on and you wanted me to be a part of it as the lead. And I remember point I was like, "Hey, I feel like this probably could be a feature film." And I think you have the definite potential to turn this into a feature film. You've accomplished a lot already and you know what you're doing. I remember pushing that and you were all for it, which was wonderful. You definitely received that well. And then you took it and you're like, yes, that's a great idea. And you turned it into edited into a feature film, a feature script.
Yeah. Well, it's like I think it was nice because like at the time it was like you and like a few other people in my inner circle who were just like, why you don't need to keep doing shorts. Like, you could also start pushing out into the feature length space. And it's like, one thing I've always found with my career is like at certain moments you gotta present yourself with a challenge. And either you succeed at that challenge or you don't succeed at that challenge. And I think you threw down a really good gauntlet there of like, why not try to do a feature? And so you browbeat me into it, I think.
Yeah, I know. I'm all like, I was really nice and, about it. No,
Yeah,
I was like pushing it. I was so pushing for
yeah.
it.
And you were pretty much there from the get-go in terms of like, we had you screen test alongside your potential sister castmates, which we had somewhat at one point, but then we felt like that wasn't quite the right fit, and then we went and found Emily.
Well, yeah, that was fun when we had to, find Rachel's sister. And me like having me be a part of that process was exciting and new for me because I didn't ever experience at that point casting for something. And I remember finally meeting Emily and it was like perfect. There was no question about it.
Yeah, I think she left and you and I are both just like her.
Yeah. We were like, we're not even gonna bother looking at anyone
As
else.
as her mom just picks her up in their minivan, she drives off. We're like, okay.
Yeah.
What do you like, what were probably the things you remember the most fondly? Wow, can't talk. What do you
I
remember
have
most
those
fondly
days every
from?
day, you know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, like what do you remember most fondly from the Stone Sisters shooting time? Because like we didn't shoot like it all the way through. It was like kind of like just on weekends or like over the course of like
Mhm.
a summer basically, or like when we had just free time during the week. Like what do you remember that was fun from then?
Well, so during that time, it was really an interesting time for me because what I remember is that was the time where I was really studying and really trying to get deeper in the acting. And I was working with my acting coach, one of my favorite acting coaches, and he was helping me like learn how to like immerse myself in the role. And what I remember about the Stone Sisters is like that was the first time where I altered things like in my personal and daily life to be Rachel. And it was a very special time for me because I was learning this new territory and I was really like holding on to my craft in a special way that I hadn't before. And I mean it was all a learning thing for me. And then the actual like being on set and everything, I just remember being in Rochester Hills and having your parents were so awesome. They were so helpful and just so welcoming all the time. And just working with everybody and I think it was like a was it as it was at least a week shoot. I remember.
Like, I mean, it was like it was a bunch of days. Like, if you
They were
strung it all
not
together,
yeah.
I think we did about 10 days.
It was over yeah, it was over
I
7
mean,
days.
but yeah, I mean, but it was just like, yeah, it was just like, a Friday, Saturday here, a Saturday, Sunday there, and we just go out and knock out a bunch of scenes. And it's
Yeah.
interesting that, like, that came together very much in a super guerrilla indie way of like, we filmed it in our free time and it actually came together really nicely.
Yeah, it was fun because you're right. It wasn't like, oh, this is like a consecutive days thing and you could take a break and you could come back and feel refreshed and get back at it again. And I think I remember being outside and shooting outside a ton. And that role involved a lot of stage combat.
Hmm.
And we all know that I love that. And that's
Oh,
kind of how it
yes.
all started for me, even with No Regrets, the first short film. I mean, we laugh and talk about how much I was freezing to death, but at the same time, I was like moving around a lot and fighting,
Hmm.
and that kept me warm. But yeah, so it's Stone Sisters, same thing. It's like being outside was nice, and it was perfect weather. I think you picked like a great time to shoot that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think after that, after we did Stone Sisters, I think then that's when you left for LA, correct? Or shortly after you left for LA.
Yes, it was like right after Stone Sisters. I started to feel like I'm ready, I can do this. I can go out to LA.
Yeah. So like can you tell me a little bit of like can you describe a little bit like how was it for you being a young up and coming actor trying to just pursue your craft out in Los Angeles? Like what was that just generally like for you?
So, like being out here, and being a part of the Michigan film industry, it was like I was a big fish in this small pond. And I didn't even think about it. It didn't cross my mind. Like, okay, if I go to LA, this is going to be a totally different scenario. I felt like I was just doing the right thing, and, that it would work out. And going out there, I was like a very small fish. And I was like, not just a small fish, I was like a tiny tadpole in this huge ocean of, and there's so many people out there pursuing the arts. I will say that the time that I was out there, like 2014, that was a great time. I feel lucky and blessed that I got to experience LA, before all everything, like before pre-COVID,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So being out there for me, I was young. I was looking, through, as they say, like rose colored lenses,
Yep. Yep.
you know? And the thing that I say that I was lucky with was the people that I met that connected me to whatever else that I needed to do, whether it was like a class or a local gym, or, how to drive from point A to B. Like it was, I met good people, and the acting thing was interesting because there was a lot of distraction. There was a lot of factors where I'm trying to like pursue this, but now it's different. It's no longer pursuing it the way that I did in Michigan, where I have a roof over my head. I have my family and people that I know and places that I frequent. There's all of that, it's taken away. So you're just constantly like, what's next, But overall, I wouldn't take it back. I think I navigated it and I figured it out, and it was a
Hmm.
great experience, and I would never take that back.
Yeah, so like obviously you and I both are believers and that's part of the conversational topics I like to always lean
Yes.
into. So like did you find that it was hard to be a believer out in Los Angeles? Like did you find that was challenging or did you have like moments where stuff kind of came into conflict with that?
I would say that I had moments, but I think, for myself, I was very grounded and very rooted into, my faith. I was born and raised Catholic, and I went to church a lot. I mean, my grandma would push me to go to church all the time. She is actually also the reason why I really pursued acting, because she would tell me all the time, "Oh, I want to see you up there. I would love to see you on screen." So she's a big reason to why I was in church so much as a kid and a teen, and then I was also in church choir. And so moving out to LA, yeah, I definitely had moments of, there's a lot of different, people and different events happening where it's like, oh, it's always like, oh, come here, let's go drink, let's go have fun, let's meet this person, let's try to sneak it onto onto the red carpet.
Hmm.
But the very first thing I did when I moved out there was find my church. That was the very first thing I did. And I think it really just depends on the person you are. I think it's different for everybody, you know? It's just really, how grounded are you in your faith, and how easy is it for you to steer in a different direction? Because yes, LA does bring that whole new wave, like the crystals and the meditating and the yoga, and the thing is to like go meditate on the mountain out there.
Hmm.
And don't get me wrong, I did all those things. I did. I tried them out, and they did bring me peace at one point. But like, I always kept my eyes on Jesus. I think for me, as I said, like being grounded and having those strong roots just really helped me stay focused out there.
Were there any big properties that you did land jobs on? I know there are a few.
Yeah, so I ended up working on an couple episodes of NCIS and an episode of Castle. That was really exciting. I did a play in Hollywood. That was such a learning thing for me. And I would say those were like my biggest moments, besides the auditions that I got. Like some of the auditions were huge too.
So obviously, what was kind of nice about all that is obviously we kept in touch since we had
Yeah.
really. I think we bonded really during Stone Sisters. I think that was when we got to be really good friends, just even offset. And obviously, we stayed in touch while you were out in LA. And obviously, it was kind of like, oh, let's connect when you're back in town and stuff like that. And by that point, you hadn't met my wife Ellen yet, but that was soon to come. So eventually, you come back to Michigan, and almost immediately, I kind of jumped on the opportunity that you were back in town to do. We did two short films pretty close together, which was The Hostage and The Last Prophet. So talk about what your roles were in each one of those and how were they kind of a little challenging for you? Because I tried to push you a little bit. That's always
You
kind of my running gag is I'm going to try to see if I can push Renay somewhere different.
Yeah, so I think we filmed those after I got married, after I moved back to Michigan, right?
Yep.
Both of them,
Yep.
yeah. So it
Yep.
was definitely
You're back.
different for me because I had taken just a little break because of like the wedding stuff and all that. I, I was excited because, I had just come back from LA and I honestly thought like, oh, I'm leaving in LA, so there's nothing else that's gonna come for me. But little did I know those couple years I was like booking like crazy. But so
And
for
I was
and
lying in wait.
and you were what?
I was lying in wait.
Yeah, so
Mm.
the hostage, I played Bridget, and I was like, "I don't know if I'm ready to," I remember talking to you. I think I always do the same thing. It's the same Renay thing of, "Hey, are you sure? I'm not ready. This is not for me." And you always, you're my biggest fan, seriously. So I always thank you for that. But yeah, the hostage was cool because it was about, I think I played a character, her name was Bridget, and she was the mayor's daughter and she was kidnapped by this mob. So it was just it was different for me. I haven't played anything like that before. And that was all shot in Grand Rapids, I believe.
Yeah, kind of like off the beaten path. Yeah.
Yeah. And then in with The Last Prophet, that one was interesting for me because I debated after reading the script, which was phenomenal. I think you're an amazing writer for sure. But I remember reading it and I was like,
Yeah, that one made you nervous, I think.
yeah, I was like, hold up. Can I play this role? It's like Layla and she's evil. And I mean like the top evil without
Hmm.
saying
Yep.
who she is. And yeah, that one was challenging because I wanted to so badly do it, but that one I questioned. But I'm glad that I took that part because I'm glad that I did that role because that character was so much fun because it like tapped into all these different areas that I hadn't tapped into before. And
Yeah.
then
Well,
working with
yeah.
Bob,
Hmm.
yeah, that was
I
fun.
actually just watched today. I just watched the behind the scenes of that, and you two were like, as I figured you would be. You guys were like just joking around in between takes and stuff like that.
Oh, did you?
I had a feeling you two were gonna get along really well. When I was like,
Oh,
when I paired you guys together, I'm like, well, I know I have Bob. I really want Renee to do this, and I know she'll like Bob will make her laugh. And usually on set, if you're like laughing and having a good time in between takes, that means you're more relaxed and stuff
uh,
like that. And but like I think also I personally love how we shot that. We had a great location, shot it in just 2 days, and like especially like your big baddie outfit. I loved how that outfit came together because like it looked really good on camera. Like it just really read in. I think like once you transformed into that side of it, like we found the right tone in the performance, I think.
yes, absolutely. And I think Liz had a big part to play in the costume, right?
Yep, no, that was her design, yeah.
Liz Merriman, yeah.
Yep, that was all her design, yeah.
And I remember Johnny Clark was working on those films with us too.
Hmm.
And that he was great. The location was Ludington, right? I believe.
Yeah, we were out at Ludington State Park, yep.
Yes, it was stunning.
Yeah, it looked really, yeah, like it's probably still one of the better things I've directed. Like it just looks really, really strong. So in general, like switching back to the faith discussion, like can you tell me a little bit how like how has your faith kind of played a role as you've been pursuing an acting career?
It's always played a major role in my acting career because we all have discernment. And I think like having strong faith, I feel like really helps you with that. And, you really have to ask yourself, is this rule for me? Is this right with God? Can I do this? How does this look with God? I always ask myself that. I've rejected a lot of different roles because of that.
Awesome. Well, then obviously another big family change that happened was that you became a not one, but two kiddos. Like,
Yeah.
how did that change how you kind of approached just life and also how you approached like what roles you decide to pick and stuff?
Being a mom, you're no longer responsible for yourself. You're responsible for another human or two or three. Thankfully, for me, it's just two and it's not three. But it I went on little hiatuses every time I had a kid because I needed time to sort of fully give them my focus and attention. And it was hard. It was challenging because, you're not used to that. You're used to sort of like, oh, you're on your own terms. You can hop in the car and go to the grocery store whenever you want. And now you
Hmm.
now know like
Yep.
that's
Mhm.
not easy. It's not possible all the time. And I always, at this point in my life, having two kids, I guess I always ask the question with them, just like I ask about, like, is this okay with God taking on this role? That, is it okay? Like, would I want my kid when he's 18 to see me, like, on
Hmm.
on the internet playing this part or on TV playing this part? Or how does that look in their eyes and what does that do for them? So I definitely have to think from that perspective and ask those questions. And that again helps me navigate where to go, what to do, what's okay to accept and what's not. And we're human, we fall short. I mean, I'm not perfect. Maybe I do pick maybe I have picked a role that wasn't the best image for me, but I definitely try to learn and move forward.
Yeah, no. Well, that's such a level-headed thing that you were thinking that far ahead. Like, when my kid's older and maybe their friend comes across their film on a streaming platform or something like that, am I going to be okay with my kid seeing my work? That's such a
Yeah.
such a level-headed thing to be thinking about. Like kudos that you
Thank
had
you.
that in your head because like so many you could tell so many actors and you could tell definitely probably more female actors than male actors that they definitely sometimes don't think that through when like they're 25 or something like in their
Right.
early 20s and it's like, oh, but what's going to happen when I'm 40 and my kids now getting of age where they can start finding this stuff or their friends can find this stuff.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
that's great for you. So obviously between the kids, we continue just to keep in touch. I think you had come over to West Michigan a few times for like photo shoots and a couple commercials, and you got to hang out with me and Ellen. You and Ellen got to know each other during that period, and
Yes, I
then
love Ellen, and I love West Michigan. I wanna move there. It's so pretty.
fast forward to 2021, you get another call from me, and it's for The Watchers. What was that like when I contacted you about that?
That one was the hardest, "Hey, I can't do this," because I was a new mom and I was nursing. I was nursing at that time, and I remember I mean, this is kinda TMI and it's hilarious at the same time, but I had to lug my breast pump over to the hotel that I was staying at.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I never told you this because in order for me to be okay while filming and I
Hmm.
would have to go take breaks and yeah, so I managed to pull it off. I managed to come out there during that time and have enough, milk for my kids to be okay with their sitter and family. And yeah, the Watchers, that was so cool to get for me at that time because I hadn't done anything in a long time and just was focusing on the kids.
Well, and I remember having to. It took me longer than usual to convince you to do it because you were. I think that was probably you at your most uncertain, and I had
Yeah.
to convince you. Like I wrote this with you in mind. I know it's a role since you're now a mom. You will bring the the viewpoint that I wanted in that role because it was a, pro life activist character. So I wanted someone who was a parent to have that personal experience to bring to the role. But I remember, I think it was just because you hadn't done any acting in a couple years. I think that was where you were just like, little nervous about jumping back in on something so like more serious.
Yeah, it was to do with that, and it was also to do with the fact that, like, after I think all moms can agree, it's like after you have a baby, you're just not fully the same for a while, physically and mentally. And I was going through a little bit of PPD,
Hmm.
anxiety and all that. And I guess, those voices in my head were like, "Hey, you can't do this. You're a mom. You can't do this." And I'm like, that's so ridiculous. At some point, still myself, and my kids are here because of me, you know?
Hmm.
So I I just I accepted it, and I'm so glad I did because the role of Tara she is phenomenal. I think she's a very strong character, you know? She is very passionate, very driven. She's a pro-life activist, and she's a mom who actually questioned being a mom and questioned, like she had her own crossroad. So I think it's a overall, like, I would love to see more of her in season 2, if we
Yeah,
if we move on to season 2.
we're definitely trying to make that happen. And we definitely got more for you to do in season 2, as we've talked about before. And
Yeah.
like, I'm trying to remember, were you just on set for, was it just one day of filming for you on season 1, or was it 2 days?
It was one day.
It was one day.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
think it was 2 because like, showed up on the second day to see everyone because I hadn't met, like, Kevin and
Hmm.
all the other actors, so I was nice that you were like, "Hey, come by. I know you didn't get a chance to work with them because I only worked with Sierra
Hmm.
on
Yeah.
yeah,
And
so
then, yeah, well, and then what was really kind of cool is the following year when we released the film, we got to promote it at the Grand Rapids Comic Con, and it was you, David, Joe, and Kevin who got, and no, Sophie too, who got to be on the actual panel at Comic Con. What was that like for you? Because I know you and most of the actors had never done that before. So, what was it like from your perspective? Because I remember you and Sophie were kind of like, "What do we get? What do we do?"
I could cry right now because just you asking me is like reigniting the nerves and the butterflies and just like all the feels. It's something I had never done before. I knew that I had to sit in front of a crowd of people and be myself and answer as Renay Reyes and not as the character. And as an actress, one of the reasons why personally I love acting is because I can step into a different character and I don't have to be me.
Yeah, you could hide
I
your
can
own self.
hide.
Yeah.
Yeah. So being on stage for that was so cool. And I'm honestly so grateful to this day that you pushed me, that you asked me to do that. And it was so rewarding at the end.
Well, and I think a lot of the actors who hadn't done before, really, you guys got a kick of being at. It felt very cool to be at, and you and I thought it was cool, and I didn't get to do a thing with it, of sitting at the booth actually signing the posters and people coming
Oh
up and asking questions.
yeah.
Like, I feel like that was just a surreal moment for especially a lot of us who are like the local Michigan people. That
Yeah,
was
that was
kind of
surreal.
surreal. And like people got to ask us questions, and we got to be like, "Oh, you actually want to know what we did?" It's like that's crazy.
That was the second panel for you, right? It's the second
Uh
time you did
that
something
was the
like that?
second convention I had done. I did one with Kevin in Dallas like a month or two prior to that. So then we get Watchers. That's 2022, and then we creep into 2023. I get busy with personal family stuff, and then bad stuff happens in 2023, and then I start
Mhm.
writing again over the summer, and then you get another call from me in September of 2023. It might have been August of 2023, but do you remember how that went? Because I don't.
Of 2023, you called me and you told me that had a was it the Christmas movie in mind. Was
Hmm.
that about Stone? It was about a soldier for Christmas. And I was just so overjoyed when you said that to me because I like literally have always wanted to work on a Christmas film. But prior to when you called me, I was like, what is Aaron calling me again for? Like, what's next? What's happening now?
Hmm.
But yeah, it was a great conversation and I was really excited. But I would say that that was a point for me where I felt the farthest from like, my work.
Hmm.
But regardless, when you called me, I was still interested and excited. And wanting to know more about the project. And you told me about, that it was about Hannah, who's a widow, and, she meets a new love interest. And I'm like, this is so Hallmark. I love it.
It didn't
Yeah.
take long for you to get really excited about it, if I remember right.
Yeah. It
Like,
was
what for you?
exciting.
For you, what was probably some of the most challenging aspects about the whole production for Soldier?
For Soldier for Christmas, it was the time constraint. It was how much we shot in one day. It was a 90-page script. I was the lead. I think I had major dialogue. There was a lot for me to memorize, and a lot for me to work on with the role. Even though we had a lot of similarities, like Renee and Hannah,
Mhm.
I was going through a divorce at that time. That was very challenging. Now looking back, it was totally helpful for the part.
Well, I remember like yeah, there were times where you were like, "I'm so glad I'm like I could be here right now." It kind of helped
Mhm.
distract you a little bit, and also because we were trying to have it be a very positive atmosphere. I think that just kind of helped you a little bit, at least in the
Yeah.
conversations you and I had during off times.
Yeah, it was actually it was a challenging time for you and Ellen too, We were
Hmm.
both we were all, I'm really grateful that we were all there for each other through those things. And this film really, I feel like, was healing for all of us. But I would say the challenging part to it for me was just like the personal stuff that I was going through, as well as like just trying to get everything done in a matter of time.
Hmm.
I do wish we could have spread it out more.
You and me both.
Yeah, yeah, and rearrange some of those scenes and not have to sob at 9 in the
Oh
morning.
yeah, yeah. That was in hindsight. We shouldn't have had you break up with the guy in the morning and then meet him for the first time and have the
Yeah,
butterflies in the afternoon.
I would say so. I would
That was
definitely
probably
say
not the
so.
best order to do that in.
Right.
But it's just sometimes how it flows. Well, it's like, and I agree with you. I definitely think Soldier for Christmas ended up being a great bonding and healing opportunity for a lot of people involved. And I think that's just another great example of God using the art and the film that we were doing to kind of just help us through those personal challenges and stuff like that. And again, I feel like
Mhm.
a lot of us got really, really close on that production just because it was such a small crew and cast, and we were just really, and we all knew we were under the gun timeline wise, so we just
Yeah.
kind of had to buckle down. And if I'm trying to remember, was was that your first on-screen kiss, or am I remembering the details incorrectly?
Yeah, that was the first time that that I accepted a role where kissing was involved. There was like implied, there was a lot of roles that I did where it was like kind of implied, but never
Hmm.
actually went through with it. And let's not kid ourselves. It was not just it was not one kiss. It was like, a lot of takes on that kiss. So it was definitely challenging for me because I'm
Yeah.
like, well, first of all, I've never done this before. Second of all, I have to keep going,
Mhm.
to get the shot. So that was interesting, but it was.
Well, and luckily, thank goodness, we had a good co-star with you who made you feel comfortable. Like I feel like Joe was
Absolutely.
really a good shoulder for you to lean on when you were feeling like the stress of the workday and stuff like that. And he was a good encourager to you as well, which again was one of the things I was
Yeah.
hoping he was gonna be during the shoot because I knew so much of this film was on your shoulders as the lead. So I figured you needed to have
Yeah.
someone who could. Besides me, when I couldn't be like right there on set with you, like kind of propping you up when you needed someone just to kind of keep you going.
Absolutely. No, he was such a phenomenal co-star. Like, I was so lucky to have him, play that part like with me, and then just be there and being like that, not just shoulder to lean on, but almost like a guide on set for whenever I had a moment of frustration as an actress, and help me be more comfortable and get more comfortable with improvising, like him and Kevin. Him and Kevin love
Hmm.
to improvise. I would say Tim was also a huge help on set for me too. Like, he was definitely he gave me a lot of pep talks. You absolutely gave me a lot of pep talks.
Well, and I think for me, like, because I knew you were going through so many different things, both on camera and off camera, I think I changed my approach that I usually do with you, where usually I'm just trying to keep you energetic and positive. Like this one was more like, I was more like, I'm just gonna sit right next to you if you need to squeeze my hand, or if you need just
Mhm.
to just sit quietly next to you. Like you knew I was there, but like we didn't have to say anything. But I think that was also because we had worked together for so long, we knew that that wasn't necessary. Like if you needed something, I could just be right there, and because like
Absolutely.
I was also going through a lot of different emotions at that time too.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't there, you had Joe, you had Tim, you had Ellen there
I
as
had
well. And I know,
Ellen. Yeah.
yeah, and I know you and Ellen
Oh,
had
yeah.
you all had
You can't put me
the
and Ellen in the same
the
room.
ladies in the
We'll be
ladies in the
sobbing
makeup
the
room
whole
had a
time.
had a moment, but it was a sweet
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah,
So like,
I think I seriously, I don't think I've ever cried so much on a set. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
but it was well earned, and
it
it
was
came
good.
through in the performance. So it worked
Absolutely.
out. So speaking of Kevin, so like talk to me about like because that was the first time you'd ever acted with Kevin. What was it like doing your one scene with him?
Yeah, it was my first time I ever acted with Kevin, but it was like my second or third time meeting him. Probably my third time because we
I
worked
think
on
so.
the panel, and then when he was filming Watchers, I got
Mm-hmm.
to meet him on set. But working with him was I can't even tell you how nervous I was to work with Kevin. I was so intimidated. I remember having like frequent conversations with both Tim and Joe about it. I don't think you and I talked much about it because I didn't want you to get worried like
Mm-hmm.
over that. There was so much other worry. I was like, I don't want to put this on Aaron's plate. And Joe would keep saying, Joe and Tim both kept saying to me, he's normal human being, just like you and me.
Yeah.
And he's really cool. And I think spending that time like prior to shooting really helped, and rehearsing with him a little bit really helped.
Mm-hmm.
But that scene was like one of my favorites to shoot. It was so magical. I actually was way more comfortable than I thought, than I expected. And I think he has a lot to do with that. It's just like who he is, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Well, he has a way of like easing his fellow actors into a scene and just kind of bringing them into the scene with him, and all of a sudden it just feels very like everyone just kind of gets into a really high quality zone. At least that's the effect I've noticed. And
Yeah.
he makes himself very accessible to his fellow
Yeah.
actors.
Yeah, he did bring like such a spark to it, I felt like it was inspiring me, and I don't know, just kind of pushing me to tap into other areas with Hannah, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, for sure. So now we shoot it in a week, very intense week. Months go
Mhm.
by, and like I'm working on it and keeping people updated. The trailer comes out, and then I let you know, hey, it's gonna go into the local theater here. What was it like having both like attending like the local like just run in theaters here in West Michigan, and then tell me what it was like for you like going out with me and Kevin to New York for when Joe did his screening.
Yeah, going out to Grand Rapids and, experiencing all of that was so surreal. It was so surreal. It actually almost felt like a dream. I was nervous to tell a lot of my family and friends and post about it because, it's always been hard for me to self-promote, but I did. And I was like, I don't know who's going to show up. I don't know what to expect. And people did. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like a lot, a few family members, lots of friends. Like it was exciting to experience that and sit there with you and Ellen and Joe and see this happening. And we all experienced it together for the first time, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think I told you it's like, yeah, it's gonna be interesting to watch this all the way through with in one thing because like I've watched it in chunks. I haven't just like pressed
Seen the
play and
whole
had it go.
Yeah. Yeah. And you saw me. It was like hard for me to watch sometimes.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
well, you tried to run away
Oh
when we
yeah.
got near to the screening room where I had to literally threaten to have Joe like shoulder carry, army carry you into the screening.
I forgot about that. I did. I was like, "Hey guys, I left something in my car." And then I just darted, and then Joe ran after me. And he's like, "Nuh-uh, you are not getting away." And
uh,
yeah, that was hilarious. I'm so
yeah,
glad you guys forced me
yeah. Well, I
to
remember
sit
when we
there.
were taking photographs outside the theater with our poster amongst all these big releases, and I remember leaning over to you. And I remember saying something along the lines of like, can you believe that like you and I have been at this working on stuff together pretty consistently for like 11 years, and now we're here at a
Oh,
movie theater, and we're about to go in and watch a film we've done together on the big screen. Like that to me, that still just feels so surreal that we got to do
I
that.
remember you saying that. I remember it hitting me, like, I was just so shocked in that moment with you. Yeah, and then going to New York, that was another level, a whole other level of surreal, and having because that theater was filled to the brim, if
Yeah.
I recall. Some people were standing, I think.
It was yeah, it was 300 people. Like the screening we in West Michigan, we had about 20 to 30 people, which was nice because like, you know, it was a lot of people we knew, but also we got just a nice feel for it. And we got to
Yeah.
just kind of make our little I remember us, we were kind of like down our row, people we were just kind of poking each other and making our in jokes because we knew about all the behind what went into making that shot happen. But like it was cool to see it with like such a big audience in New York. And they were laughing. People were coming up to us before, and even especially afterwards. The feedback we got afterwards was like so surreal. I mean, and you and Joe probably got more of it than I did. I got the luxury of hanging back, and you guys
Yeah.
got to hear all the positive feedback, which I thought was awesome. That people were giving you all this, like all these accolades and just really praising your performance work, which I was for me as your longtime friend and collaborator, that made me so happy that you got to hear that kind of feedback right from people who just watched you.
Yeah, because you know that I've always been like, "Are you sure? Were we talking about the same character, the same person?" You
Mhm.
know, yeah, that was, I was so emotional, like, after experiencing all of that because I was like, "Wow, this feels deserving at this point." Working so hard all these years, working on all these projects that you and I have both worked on, and I remember seeing you and saying, you know, like, "Aaron looks so super proud right now," like, he's, like, a proud dad over there with his children, almost, and it was really cool to see for like from that perspective too, to see like you feeling accomplished and what people were saying about the film and how you were receiving it, you know. It was just overall such a cool experience to have even flown out to another state, have our film screening and not just anywhere in New York, you know.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, who knows what the next project's gonna be? Like, going back to like kind of how your faith's kind of been intertwined on this journey. So like, you know, obviously we've gone through all these different projects. It's come at different times. Like, do you feel like your faith has kind of helped keep encouraging you, and keeps you moving forward in pursuing more roles?
Yes, there's been a lot of times where I'm like, maybe I'm not doing, maybe this isn't for me, God. You know, I've questioned, like, hey, I guess maybe this isn't for me. And it's like, you know, I'm kind of like not asking for a sign, but internally like wanting a sign. And it's like, I don't do anything unless something shows up that's like, oh, this is a confirmation from God. I don't know. I've kind of always been that way where I'm like looking for a sign, you know. But I would say that it's still like my faith plays a huge part in like in my acting still and pursuing it and you know just constantly just asking God, you know, is this right for me?
Yeah. And then like, are there any kind of roles you are hoping to do in the near future? Obviously, continuing Tara in season 2 of The Watchers is obviously one of them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That would be so cool. I really hope that all works out. Besides Tara, you know, I love like after working on Soldier for Christmas, I'm like, yeah, I knew that I always wanted to work on Hallmark Christmas type movies. So that's definitely up there for me. Like after that, I'm like, these are fun. These are cute. These are like it's also just fun to keep working on something as an actress and yeah, you know, sometimes they can be challenging and sometimes they're light. I mean, Hannah, that role was challenging and I do like a challenge. Yeah, I'm afraid of it in the beginning. Besides all that, I would say really what I've been really desiring to be a part of is something like I think The Passion of Christ part 2 is coming out or they're working on it or something. I don't know if
Yeah, I
you've
think
heard of that.
it's supposed to be filming soon, and then I think it's
Yeah.
part 1 comes out in 27 on Easter, and then on Pentecost is part 2, I think.
Yeah, so doing something like that's Jesus related, like that or The Chosen.
Mhm.
Yeah, those are things that really lately I've been desiring doing.
Mhm. No, no, totally makes sense. All right,
Yeah.
well, the last question I have for you is like,
Sorry, besides those
yep,
superhero roles.
yep, yep.
You know, those are always there.
Had to squeeze
Those are
that in there.
always there. Yeah.
So yeah, so the last question I have is like, so if you were talking to like a young actor who's maybe getting ready to come out of high school, maybe he's done some theater, is thinking about acting, from your experience of like, obviously balancing your faith, your family, and your film career, like what advice would you give to a young up and comer who's possibly looking about pursuing a career?
I would say try to stick to people that are in line with like what your beliefs are. You will find people like that are in the film industry that are on the same page. Of course, number one is, take a class. Always take a class. Make sure to network, and don't be afraid of networking. I was majorly afraid of networking when I lived in LA. I wish I could go back in time and change that, because now I've become a better, I guess a better talker, a better person to meet people and not be afraid to like share. I think it's important to yeah, take a class, network, try things, don't be afraid. You never know what they're going to lead to. Have discernment, pray over everything before you do it. Like before any role, I always pray before I take a role. Just and think on it. You don't need to answer right away, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, well, awesome. Well, Renee, thank you so much for being my first guest ever. That was actually a lot of fun, kind of reminiscing a little bit.
Thank you for having me as your first guest. Seriously, it was such an honor.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, if you guys like this episode, please subscribe to the channel. And as always, love to see you guys' comments and feedback down below. And until then, keep the faith and keep on filming.